Hello, and welcome to John's Jam Sessions, the music and other topics podcast, hosted by me, John, and Mike. You are back once again. Hello, welcome. How are you
Hello.
doing?
Yes, I am back once again. Good to be back. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to discussing one of my absolute favourite pastimes, if not my actual favourite pastime.
What's that, sex?
Second favourite
All right,
pastime.
okay.
To be honest, there's a lot of times I've enjoyed myself more at a gig than I have in the bedroom. So
Okay, all right. Yeah, we're talking about gigs, just in general gig talk. We've been down some very specific topics, haven't we? We've done our corn review, we've done our System of a Down review. I've been doing Chili's, I've been doing film reviews, but it's time to just get back to basics a bit
yeah,
and shoot the shit a bit. We're going to talk about gigs. So we're just pretty much going to get right into it then. What was your first gig? Like your first proper gig?
my first gig was I was 15 years old and I went to see Trivium at the Liverpool.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, the Liverpool
Yeah.
Student Union or something like that. It was the something to do with
Was
the
it the Lipper,
university.
the Liverpool
No,
Uni of
it was
Arts?
the Liverpool. It was the University of Liverpool. It was like at the hall.
Yeah, I've seen a band there before. Yeah, I know the one.
So it was a proper small venue, and
Yeah,
they were an up and coming band at the time. And
yeah.
obviously, I was just coming out of my new metal phase when I was 15. I was going into me quote unquote proper metal phase. So yeah, the stages that you have to go through for anyone who's never been through this trajectory before. You start off with new metal. You start off listening to bands like they're your gateway into alternative music, like the Corns of the world, the Limp Bizkits of the world, the Linkin Parks, and etc. etc. And then
I
you get
never left that stage.
yeah, yeah. A lot of people didn't, but yes, you get to a stage where you're thinking, right, I want something a little bit more hard hitting now. But you don't obviously jump straight into the likes of the death metals of the world and the
No,
thrash metals
no.
of the world. There's a bit of a bridge genre called metalcore, and Trivium were a band that were coming up, an American band that were coming up around 2005. I started getting into them, 2006 ish. Again, they sort of like over time they lose their edge a little bit, but and obviously once you move on to other stuff, at the time that for me they were like,
Yeah.
wow, this is like really like sort of edgy music.
They blew up at the time, didn't they? Around that time, I remember them blowing up. I remember them being like in Kerrang magazine all the time.
Yeah,
Everyone wearing the Trivium hoodies, the Trivium like kit,
yeah,
and all
yeah.
that. I've actually seen them myself as a support act the year before in 2006 when they
Right.
supported Maiden. But what was it a good gig? Was it a great like first experience, or do you kind of look back on it a bit and you're like, that was a bit?
Tell you what, I look back on it now and I'd probably, even though I'm not really into Trivium as much anymore, I'd probably enjoy the whole gig more now because there were three support acts, but all three
Yeah.
support acts were fantastic. And the first band that I ever saw live was the first of them three support bands. They're now my favourite out of all of them bands. Band called Gojira.
Oh, yeah,
Anyone
okay.
listening to this who's into the metal music, who's up on the metal music, progressive metal and death metal and stuff, will know Gojira. I've seen them recently on their own, and they're fantastic. I love them. But at the time, I wasn't that advanced in my musical sort of
Yeah, it
my
was
musical
starting
fandom.
out, wasn't it?
So I was sort of watching them, thinking, "Oh yeah, they're good, but let's get on with it. Let's get Trivium on. Let's get the real
Yeah.
sort of thing." But yeah, so I feel like I went with a group of my mates, and when I was 15, I looked 15.
Yeah.
But I was a child and I resembled a child. So I can only imagine how stupid we all looked as little kids stood at that gig
What
watching
was the
Gajir.
crowd like for Trivium back then? Well, as you say, like I know you were young, but they were big amongst
Yeah.
the young crowds. Was it loads of teens like yourself, or were there like proper
No, to be honest,
like a
no.
lot of adults there and stuff?
We were the youngest at the gig. From what I remember, we appeared to be the youngest at the gig. There was a lot of like maybe fellas our age now
No,
in
right,
the
okay,
30s and stuff
yeah.
who were listening to who were at the gig, and it was obviously there were students there with it in the Liverpool student bar.
Yeah.
And it was packed out in there. They just released their third full length album, and that was the album that propelled them into the mainstream, really. So they did draw a big crowd for the venue, and then obviously from that point on, they sort of went from popularity strength to strength, and they don't obviously play them sort of venues anymore. But it was really cool to have my first gig at that rather than seated arena and a massive band and all that. It was
Yeah.
quite cool to be able to say that my first gig was a little independent venue, like
Yeah, that's good that because mine was, as you say, completely what you've just said. Then I think my first proper gig that like wasn't like a tribute act or like proper first actual
yeah,
established gig was Roger Waters, who
Wow.
is one of the main guys out of Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And this was in 2002 because, like, I think the first band I ever got into musically, and it is so random looking back on it now, was Pink Floyd.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I fell in love with that band around 10 years old. But when as I fell in love with that band, it was just one album in particular, The Wall. I just loved that album. I was obsessed with it because I kind of got a lot of like music from my dad. That's where I'd heard a lot of music, me a lot exposed to a lot of it.
Yeah,
So, he put The Wall on for me and I was in love with it. And then he's like, putting Dark Side of the Moon on and Wish You Were Here. And I'm like, it's not as good as The Wall though. I was just completely like one track minded. That was the album I loved. That was the album I listened to. He took us to see Roger Waters, and it was what you said. We were seated. I don't think we were like nosebleed, but we were pretty like high up in the arena. It was still like an amazing experience to kind of like see a gig and see all these like people here, all these like-minded folk all into like the same artist as yourself. So that was like my first gig, but I'd want to talk about the first gig that I kind of went to without my dad like holding my hand and cherishing me like a little lamb. Because I think the second gig after that I saw was Iron Maiden with my dad in 2003. Again, like my music mind hadn't developed fully then.
Yeah.
I hated it. I sat there with like a bit of a sulk on, arms crossed, like, oh, this is boring, don't like this. Because I only really liked a few Iron Maiden songs, but after that gig, it was like a delayed response. It was like the weeks and months afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
I really, really started getting into them. And I was like, oh my God. And now, like, I look back on that and, like, I see that as, like, a bit of a thing I can be, like boastful of and brag about. I got to see Iron Maiden in, like, 2003. I was only, like, 12 years old. But at the time, I had no respect for it at all. But I remember the first gig, I went, like, on my own without any kind of, like, parental or guardian supervision was in 2008. In London at Twickenham Stadium to see Iron Maiden. It was third time seeing them at that point.
Yeah.
It was during their Somewhere in Time tour, when they were doing like the retrospective.
Back in.
So they were doing Number of the Beast up to about Somewhere in Time. So that was a great gig, that. But yeah, they were like my first kind of gigs getting into the game. And then, as you say, you get older, you start getting money, don't you? You can start going more and more. But when growing up, a lot of the bands I did see for the first couple of years would always be like, with my parents and stuff like that. So I'd always be a bit too like, I'd always be a bit like reserved and like held back. I didn't want to be like going, fucking have it, like screaming the words, going mad, because it was a bit like, thought it was awkward around my parents to kind of like, be like that. Yeah.
So your first three gigs were all big.
Yeah.
Gigs, weren't they?
Yeah, I'd say so. It was probably like Roger Waters in 2002, Iron Maiden in 2003, and then I think there may have been a couple of years where I didn't go and see anything, but I remember like around 2006, I saw Guns N' Roses. I saw, Guns N' Roses under the name Guns N' Roses. Yeah. This was Axl and company at the time.
Playing Guns N' Roses covers.
So yeah, to be honest, a lot of the gigs I've seen are mostly kind of like established bands. It was only when I started gigging myself and being in a band that I'd see a lot more starting out kind of lower level bands, really. Yeah, so they're pretty much my first gigs, really.
They were quite polar opposites then, weren't they, the first gigs that we've both been to?
Yeah, it's interesting because it is quite like a different kind of, path. Like you went out with your mates and saw the gig.
Yeah. I,
went with my dad and all his mates. So, yeah. So we'll move on from first gigs. Do you want to talk best gig? Anything that can come to mind immediately, or is it a difficult one? Because it's a bit of a difficult one for me.
This is a massively difficult one, but I have got a few that stood out to me. One of them is very, very recent, as in like the last few weeks recent. But we'll stick with the Iron Maiden theme for now, because we've seen them together 3 times, I think, haven't we?
Yeah.
2011 when they did the Final Frontier tour.
Yeah.
2017 on the Book of Souls
tour. That was not so great.
Yeah, I know. It was a good gig, but and the set list was left a lot to be desired. But then 2018 was...
Oh, yeah, Legacy of the Beast.
Yeah, Legacy. It was a classics tour, wasn't it? And I've got the set list there, and I just want to read the set list very, very quickly out, because I could not believe... I remember the gig being amazing, but I couldn't believe how stacked the set list was. Aces High, Where Eagles Dare, 2 Minutes to Midnight, The Klansman, Trooper, Revelations, which is possibly my favourite Iron Maiden song, For the Greater Good of God.
Deep Cut.
Yeah. Wicker Man, Sign of the Cross, which is the Blaze track. We'll
I
leave
like
that
it
one to
live.
the side. Flight of Icarus, another one of my favourites. Fear of the Dark,
Yeah.
classic. Number of the Beast, classic. Iron Maiden, classic. The Evil That Men Do, Hallowed Be Thy Name, and Run to the Hills. Could you handpick a better set list for an Iron Maiden gig than that?
Honestly, I couldn't. I think that'll be the last time they play like a solid set list
Yeah,
like that ever again. Obviously, they're a band that are getting on now into
yeah,
their later years. I think that was really like a gig that you just had to go to. As you say, we'll get into it later on in our kind of nitpicks and complaints. But I think set lists are always a massive thing with gigs. I think how many times I see an Iron Maiden now? So it's like 03, 06, 08, 11, 17, 18. Seen them 6 times.
yeah,
And I think at least 2 of them times, the set list was a bit skew, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
So, anything else to say on the best gigs?
Yeah, I've got to shout out this band because I'm obsessed with this band at the minute. Like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. If anyone
Yeah.
never heard of them, they are an Australian. I call them a psychedelic rock band, but they've done every genre you could probably think of. They've released 25 albums in 12 years. They are the best. They are one of the best live bands on the planet. They are a musicians band, I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Proper musicians band. The lad who I went to, I saw them in Liverpool at the end of May. And the lad who I went with, he'd never seen them before. He said to me, I have never seen a band that has made me want to be in a band more than them.
Yeah.
They were absolutely mind blowing. And the great thing about King Gizzard is that because they've got such a vast discography, every single set list on their tours is different. Like you literally look at you can't look at a set list and go, oh, they're going to play this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
Because it's completely changed from the next night on. I love this band so much. Like I said, I'll never stop. I'll never stop banging the drum for them. I think if anyone gets the chance to give them a try or see them live, I think you have to do it because, like I said, especially if you're a musician, if you're a guitarist, if you're a bassist, some of the jams that they play are just mind blowing. So much energy. And they played at the Liverpool Olympia. It was the first time I'd ever been to the Liverpool Olympia. It's like a theatre type setting, a bit like the Apollo in Manchester.
Yeah, and I think I have been to that one, yeah.
But it's like a bit smaller, and it was just perfect for that. Like the crowd was insane.
Yeah.
And the band were insane. I loved it. It was even though it was so recent, there might be a bit of recency bias creeping in. But that's one of the gigs that has stuck out to me as like I'll remember that forever. Amazing. And then I also put down the Mars Volta last year in Manchester, 2023. They played the Apollo. Something about these theatre settings that I like. when you stood on the floor and you're sort of looking round at the surroundings.
Yeah, there is something about it. Yeah, you do lose a level of like intimacy with the arenas and especially the stadiums.
Yeah. I think the vastness of the theatre setting, like the way it's the seating area stands over you and everything, and it's quite like it creates a sort of like an oldie worldy feel. Like it feels like you're at a gig in the 80s.
Yeah, like a time capsule.
Yeah. But the Mars Volta were amazing. The set list was unbelievable. All the classics from back in the day. They played a couple off the most recent album, but the performance was superb. Another band that I'd say are a musicians band. If you appreciate guitar, then you'll appreciate them if you go and see them live.
Mm-hmm.
So the three that stood out to me as the most enjoyable that I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, interesting selection.
Yeah.
So I think I wasn't even going to bring it up, but you've kind of reminded me of the whole thing. Yeah, definitely the Legacy of the Beast tour. That was brilliant. It was great getting to hear all them songs. We were right up close, weren't we?
Yeah.
I remember we were very close.
Yeah.
It was great experience. This is a band that's kind of been in my life for longer than hasn't at this point in my life now. So it was great to see him again. This is an aging band. I don't know how much longer they've really got left in them. So it will be a gig I'll definitely cherish. I think probably another one I'd think of is The Cure. It's just basically because of how much I love that band. And they truly are one of my all-time favourite bands that I just absolutely cherish. And there's just something different about hearing them songs live that have just been constantly in your lobes and in your brain for so long, and that surreal feeling when you're like, oh my god, I'm in the same room as this person who's almost mythical, almost legendary. When you first see the bands come onto the stage, and usually used to seeing them through a screen or on on the album artwork or through pictures and stuff, to to actually see them and see like the whites of their eyes and to see them close up, and like it really is like a surreal, amazing experience. I've seen The Cure 4 times now. The first time was just great because it was a first experience, but the set list went over 40 songs. Wow. It went on for a long time, and it was like they kept going off the stage and then coming back and doing more. I was like, never in my life had I like experienced that. Like the set just kept going on and on. They just kept pulling out all these tracks. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But I think the best time I saw them was, I think the last time I saw them was very close, but the time before, when I went to see them in Glasgow in Bellahouse Park, I think it's called.
Oh yeah.
Big open area, almost like a festival, but it's great because you get to go home at the end of it. We'll go back to the hotel. You're not left in a dingy, muddy camp. And it was just brilliant. It was a huge crowd, probably one of the biggest crowds I've ever been in, and it was just an amazing experience. So I'd probably say they were. Yeah, I'd probably say they were my best.
Yeah, I've never seen.
I've seen so many great bands that put on such great gigs, but if I really had to pick out, which ones will always stick with me, it'll be them.
Yeah, I've never seen The Cure myself, and I'm not as big a Cure fan as you. I do love Disintegration and Head on the Door and stuff like that, the gothic stuff from the 80s. I saw them at Glastonbury. I just watched them at Glastonbury headline on the telly.
Oh yeah, that was good.
I thought they were unbelievable. I was just sat there watching it in my living room, thinking, feels like I'm there. It was such an amazing performance. I can see why you would put them very high on your list.
They definitely put in the work, you can say that. And as I say, we will be getting into more negativity in a bit, but we can talk about bands that don't really put in the work. But they really do, man. They really put in like the work, and they've got such like a rich back catalogue. Again, as you say, I think the best one thing about positive things I can say about some of the best gigs I've been to are the ones where you're walking into it and you're not quite sure what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Whereas some bands, we're trailing off a bit here, but this is more in me gripes and me nitpicks. Some bands, they put the set list out. That's the set list through the entire tour.
I agree.
And if you're not a fan of that set list, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like there's no,
That's why I could, going back to King Gizzard, that's why I could go and see them multiple times in the same tour and get just as an enjoyable experience out of it.
At the same time, though, like one issue I do have with that is like it does give you a bit of FOMO, and like if you go to like one gig and then you look at the set list from the gig after, and you look at the set list, you're like, oh my god, they played this, they played this, they played this. Oh man, I'm so jealous.
I suppose
so. It swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
I suppose if you're such a massive fanboy of a band like I am with them, and you are with The Cure, then I suppose you just love all of the set lists equally.
Yeah. But some set lists are more equal than others.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
George Orwell once said, "What about bad gigs? What's the worst gig you've ever been to?"
The only one I can think of that I was stood there and I was just really fed up and wanted to go home was I actually went to see George Ezra in Liverpool.
Oh no, is that the green grass?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh,
I went with a group of mates, which obviously included my girlfriend and a few of her mates, and I thought I'll go along because
you never know, do you?
Yeah,
you'd be surprised.
Exactly. So I thought I'll go there, but it was not my cup of tea. That's what I will say. The crowd was it wasn't for his music isn't for me. Basically, it's like when you're at work and you stood there clock watching, and you basically just like the time just seems to be dragging and going so slow. It felt like I was stood in that arena for about 6 hours.
I mean, how many songs has he bloody got? Like, besides like green grass,
he managed to do a full set list, hour and 3/4, whatever it was. But oh god, honestly, like his performance wasn't bad or anything. He's a clearly talented singer, and he's a decent pop songwriter. He's got an audience and stuff. He's not like, but yeah, something about that gig it came straight to mind when you mentioned worst gigs. Only in the sense that it was just not my thing. It wasn't like because the performance was outrageously bad. I can't really think of a gig that I've been to where the performance has been terrible.
No, I can't necessarily, unless we're talking about local band gigs.
Yeah. God, I could be here all day talking about that. Yeah,
some of them I've played myself.
But yeah, like that's the one where I thought of immediately, where it's just like I shouldn't have come to this. I should have just stayed at home.
For me, Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, same vibes.
Same vibes. He's a bit more of a hit maker. He's got a bit more underneath his belt.
Yeah.
We got tickets to see him, me and my girlfriend at the time. We got tickets to see him back when he still only had one album out. And that first album, although I'm sure if I went back to it, I probably wouldn't enjoy it that much. But that first album originally I thought was quite good because it was still him doing the mainly acoustic guitar stuff. It was before he started trying to chase after the top 40 hits. It's before he started becoming, the cheesy slice
Definitely
manufacturer that he is now. You know what I mean? So we got the tickets. He dropped his second album before the tour came out, and I remember picking that second album up and listening to it and being like, "This isn't very good."
Yeah.
This is when the kind of bad stuff started creeping in more. Like, I can't even remember that fucking song. Is it
when he tries to rap?
No, it's the one where he goes whoa, whoa. It's kind of been lost to time, that one now, hasn't it? And but there was some others off that. It was starting to, like, he was seeing the decline where he was chasing the mainstream.
Yeah.
So I was a bit hesitant to see in the gig. I was a bit like, oh, well, he'll still be all right. I don't mind a bit of acoustic guitar, and he'll have a backing band behind him and all stuff like that. This was the Manchester Arena, so a big arena gig, right? He played with no backing band.
Yeah, I believe
him on his own.
I believe he does that. Yeah.
It was really bad. Like, in an arena, like a venue that, like, if that was a small, like, as you say, like one of these small little packed out theatre gigs, that probably would have sounded great.
Yeah.
But it was a massive arena and it just felt so empty. It was him, his acoustic guitar, and like a loop pedal.
Yeah.
And he was just going off loops and stuff. And I really didn't enjoy it. And I felt so awkward there because I thought I was like the oldest person there, and I was only like 23 at the time. I thought I was like the oldest and just the straightest male there. I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb. Like everyone, it was like what you'd see at the fucking Taylor Swift Theatres tour now. It was just kids. And like, the typical audience you'd expect them to draw in. And it was kind of like you were kind of sat there, and he started covering a Backstreet Boys song, and he's starting to do these cringy, like, back and forth chants to the crowd. I just thought, I feel like I'm getting entertained by, like, Bozo the Clown. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is like
Butlin's entertainment.
I feel like it's Butlin's entertainment. I feel like I'd have a better time seeing Mr. Tumble. You know what I mean? Because at least he'd have a bit of bass and that behind him. Like, so I think that was the worst gig. It was one of the gigs where I was kind of stood there. I was like, I really shouldn't be here.
Similar vibes. I mean, George Ezra, he did have a backing band. I'll give him that. It did sound a bit more like less karaoke-ish.
Yeah.
Less bar band-ish. But yeah, same vibes. I was stood there and I was surrounded by teenage girls, and I was just with the parents and everything, and I was just like,
I went to see My Chemical Romance a couple of years ago, and I was surprised at how young the audience were for that, because obviously they've got like a new revival now, haven't they? And like emo's kind of come back into fashion. But I thought it would all be people around my age, because that's when they were big, like the early 2000s.
I would have thought that.
And I was like surrounded by kids, and I remember like before the band came on, like, everyone's chattering, you're chattering to each other. I remember like people talking to me, and I was like, oh yeah, I saw these in 2006. And they were like, it was like telling someone you were there at Woodstock 69. You know what I mean? They were like, wow.
It
was only like 4 at the time. Wow. I was like, yeah, so in 2006 they played Black Parade in full. Oh my God. Like, their minds are blown. And I was a bit like, I feel lovely. I was in a 9 Inch Nails t-shirt, and I was a bit like, I feel like I'm a bit out of place. But we'll move on from that, and we'll get into support acts. Now, support acts for me are the biggest hit and miss ever.
Yeah.
They're there for a little treat. They're there for a little extra, aren't they? Something to keep you going until the main band comes on. I've been to gigs where they don't have support bands, and usually I prefer that, to be honest.
Yeah.
They can be so hit and miss. So with the first question is best support act. What's the best support act you've seen? I know you mentioned before you saw one with Trivium.
Again, I'd maybe go with them just because of how big they've become and how much I now enjoy them. I think they were the first band I actually ever saw live, and like obviously I went to see them do their own tour last year. I listen to them; they're in regular rotation for me now. Other than that, I'm struggling to think of one that stood out that I haven't known about.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of, but there's hundreds that I could not tell you that I've seen. Like, there's so many, and I don't think they ever really went anywhere. You know what I mean? Like,
same. There's some that I've seen that I've thought, wow, they put on a really good show, but then I've just left the gig and never thought about them ever again, and they've never appeared in me in my recommendations or anything like that ever again. So
because when I was younger,
them bands.
When I was younger, I saw Funeral for a Friend. I saw Trivium, and you'd be like, "Oh, Bullet for My Valentine," and then like a few years later, they'd explode, and you'd be like, "Oh shit, I saw them." They supported like Guns N' Roses, they supported Iron Maiden. I was like, "Wow!" And then over time, I've slowly seen that like disappear.
Yeah, and I know what you mean. And like I said, recent ones, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you who supported. Sometimes, because I go to gigs quite a lot, like on my own.
Yeah, you must go a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I do. I go really regularly. It's one of my favourite things to do. Just go to a gig. I sometimes just go on my own, drive to the gig, drive home.
I've done that myself. Yeah,
a lot of the time, I actually do skip the support act. I do. The only times I really see the support act is if I get there early and I've got nothing else to do and stuff. So it's not what I go to gigs for. Support act. It is great when you get a good one, but I can live without them, like you said before. If there was no support act and the band that I was going to see wanted to play a 3-hour set, I'd be more than happy for them to do that.
See, my answer for this one, I feel is kind of like a cheat, and I feel like it doesn't really count. But if I had to count them, the best support acts I've seen are Placebo, because I love Placebo, and they were supporting My Chemical Romance, and Avenged Sevenfold when they were supporting Iron Maiden. Now, both these bands, even though they were in support act, like that does happen from time to time. Like big established bands just kind of go, fuck it, we'll tag along with you, we'll come on tour with you.
Killswitch Engage supported in 2018, didn't they?
Yeah, like these are all bands that can do like fill out arenas on their own right, on their own merit.
Yeah.
So it does kind of feel like a bit of a cheaty kind of answer where it's like, oh yeah, it's like, but at the same time, they wear support acts. What can I say?
If there hasn't been any, then there hasn't been any, has there? That you've seen as a support act for the very first time hearing them, and then continue to listen to them from that point on. If there isn't any, then there just isn't any.
No. So this might be an easier one for you. What's the worst support act you've seen?
I struggled with this one as well because again, there's so many nondescript artists that I just can't remember that I've seen from gigs in the past. So I did struggle with this one, but I do remember seeing the Chili Peppers in 2011, and this was supported by they were supported by a band called Fool's Gold.
Yeah,
do you remember?
Tom knew about them because Josh came on stage, didn't he, and played a bit with them.
Yeah, I just didn't understand what it was supposed to be. It was like it was like reggae-ish, but like also a bit like electronic, and also a bit. It was just again, I felt like I was listening to the music. I felt like I was listening to intermission music that they were playing over the speakers while you were waiting for the band to come on.
I've had a lot of support bands that are basically that. At best case scenario, most of the time, they are just like that, aren't they? They're just kind of like filler music.
Background music.
Yeah.
So I can't think of anyone I've seen who's been just outrageously awful where I've had to leave the room or whatever. I've just seen a lot of average support acts over the years. Again, it's not something I take much notice of. Support bands on, I'll watch them. If they're okay, they're okay. If they're good, which is if they're really, really good, which is quite rare, then great. But yeah, they're just support acts, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're a warm up. What is the worst you've ever seen?
Right, well, it's funny now because we've kind of locked into something there. You mentioned the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They have the bizarrest curation for support bands I've ever known.
Yeah.
I feel like with the Chili Peppers I feel like they've always I feel like sometimes they struggle to understand who their audience is.
Oh yeah.
I think they don't like the rock scene, and I don't think they like being kind of put in that. You think of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I'd think a great support act for them would be like some kind of indie band or something like that. I did see them at Nebworth, and this is where the worst support was. But there was a few bands. One of the bands, the Wombats, pretty good. It was typical. It was like music off the In-Betweeners.
Yeah.
It was solid British indie music that was in at the time. The worst support act I've seen. Thank you, Red Hot Chili Peppers, for providing me with this. Dizzy Rascal.
Where did that come from?
Dizzy Rascal. Fucking honest to God. Fucking shite. Now, okay, let's be real with you. I'm going to be honest. I'm not the biggest hip hop fan. Saying that, or rap, or you know, that's not really the genre I'm into.
Yeah.
Saying that, there is hip hop, rap, R&B that I do enjoy.
Of course, yeah.
Quite a bit that I can pick up from, like out the blue. Like I even like some of the older stuff, like NWA and like there is stuff. So I'm not being completely like I hate rap music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Dizzy Rascal was fucking shite. First of all, he's a southerner. English rapper.
He's grime, isn't he?
Yeah, he's grime. So he's got that horrible, you know what I say to you. Like, he's got that kind of thing. He's always been a bit of a fucking meme and a bit of a joke and a bit of a jokey fucking like artist.
Very much.
When he came on, there was literally about 7 or 8, even 9 people on the stage. I couldn't even like pick him out. I didn't even know who he was because all these people had microphones. And they were all just like rapping along to the songs and doing their own bits, and like they have MCs who hype up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was just stood there like, what am I fucking watching?
Red Hot Chili Peppers support.
Red Hot Chili Peppers as well.
I don't get that at all. Like, what were they doing it? Did they do it just for a laugh, do you reckon?
I think they do, as I say. I think they have a bit of a gripe against, like, people have said in the past that, like, issues they have with seeing them live, and I've seen them live a few times, is that the fact that they're not, like, very engaged with the audience.
No, they're not.
Maybe they don't fully, like, as I say, maybe they don't like how they've kind of been pigeonholed into a certain kind of genre. And I think they always want to kind of, like, introduce something new to the audience that they may not typically go for.
Yeah.
Like when we saw them in 2016 and they had Baby Metal as support.
Yeah.
And when I saw them recently in 2022, it was someone called Thundercat first. He was just like a solo bassist kind of artist. And I can't even remember who he was, but a very contemporary, like new, big rapper.
Yeah.
And I was dreading that. I was like, oh God, this will just be Dizzy Rascal over again. Luckily, there was an issue and he couldn't get to the venue on time. So he didn't stop playing till after the Chili. So luckily I dodged that one. He might have been the worst, but Dizzy Rascal, hands down.
The thing is,
I was like, this is fucking awful.
Dizzy Rascal was not even like new or anything at the time, was he? He was like 15 years past
he was like, what was he, like mid-2000s? That was kind of like his peak. It was such a bizarre kind of choice. So I think hands down that, and I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not even in the scene anymore, so I'm not really afraid to kind of speak out on it, but I've seen a lot of terrible support bands when I've been playing gigs.
Yeah.
I remember one band in particular where I just wanted them to. I was like, oh my God, will this ever end?
Yeah.
And they were playing like 8-minute songs that, as you said, was just like interlude-y, just like kind of like music for the sake of music. And it'd end and they'd be like, that's the end of part 1 of My Soul Is Deep. We're going to play a new song now, and then we're going to play part 2. I was like, what the fuck? Like,
trying to be pro.
I won't name and shame, but I've seen some
I wouldn't name and shame.
Pretty bad local bands, to be honest.
Local bands, yeah.
I mean, people may say the same thing about the bands that I've played in, but that's just it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what about the loudest or the heaviest or even the craziest gig you've been to? What's your loudest and what's your craziest?
Right, I have got 2 very specific answers for this. The loudest gig I have ever been to and probably will ever go to is a band called Swans. I don't know whether you've heard of them.
I have heard of them.
They're like an experimental band. They've been going since the 80s, but their most recent music is sort of very, very experimental, very inaccessible, very long songs. It's kind of like noise. It's kind of like noise.
Like shoegaze.
There's elements of it, but I wouldn't say that they are shoegaze. It's more like noise and drone, that type of stuff.
Sounds great.
Listen, when I say this gig was loud, they were giving out earplugs for free behind the bar.
No, right.
Because the band recommends everyone who attends their shows wears earplugs.
Yeah.
I got there a little bit late to the Albert Hall in Manchester. And as I was scanning my code to get in through the door, you sort of walk in and you have to go up a couple of flights of stairs to get into where the stage is, into the room. And when I say that I could hear an acoustic guitar, so I knew that they'd started, I could hear an acoustic guitar with Michael Gira's voice sort of like, opening up the song, sort of like very melancholy opening. And it's sort of like died. I'm listening to this coming up the stairs, and then out of nowhere, the acoustic guitar fades out and the voice fades out, and then this crash, this din of instrumentation shook the stairs that I was walking up. And this is from 2 floors down. It was boom, and it was just like this crescendo of noise. And I was like, oh my God, what the fucking hell am I about to walk into here? Because I'd brought my own earplugs because I'd read online that,
get them.
fully recommended for Swans. So I put them in as I was walking upstairs. I was like, Jesus Lord above, it's quite scary actually. It was quite intimidating. Walk into that room. Like I said, throughout the gig, I just remember thinking, my God, if I didn't have these earplugs in, I would have tinnitus when I wake up tomorrow morning. It was ungodly noise, ungodly loud. At one point, I sort of thought, I'm going to take this earplug out and just see what it actually sounds like. An inch out, I was like, no, it's going back in. It's going back in. It was so loud, it was ridiculous. I can't explain how loud it was.
It's hard to get away with that stuff these days, isn't it? Like, I've heard stories back in the day. I think The Who were like legendary for being a loud band. Like your ears would bleed at the end of gigs.
Well, that's what people have said about Swans. They said like you'll damage your ears.
We live in a different world now, don't we? Where that stuff's kind of not really acceptable, is it?
Well, I've done I've got a TikTok page where I've done some sort of gig reviews, and one of them was this gig that I'm talking about now, Swans. So if you want to sort of get an idea. Obviously, the iPhone mic doesn't do it justice.
Yeah.
But if you want to sort of get an idea as to what is going on inside a Swans gig, then just go and watch that video, because even on the small little speakers, you'll sort of feel how intense it is when you go and watch it. So by far the loudest in terms of volume.
Yeah.
Not even a contest. The wildest gig I've ever been to was Dillinger Escape Plan in Manchester. They're a mathcore band. If you've never heard of the genre mathcore, it's basically music that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So like the conventional time signatures, like 4/4 and all that.
Yeah. It's thrown out
the window completely. And it's metal music, so it's like it's abrasive, harsh vocals, and all that sort of stuff. It's the sort of music that I think you would hate. They're notorious for their live shows being just like off the rails, crazy, and like read some articles online about like when they played at Reading Festival. And Dillinger Escape Plan played Reading Festival in 2002, believe it or not. When you watch the video online, it's hilarious because the crowd do not have a clue what's going on. There's like a small pocket of Dillinger fans at the front, but the rest of the crowd is sort of stood there like, what am I watching? What am I listening to? The band don't hold back. They just absolutely obliterate the stage as they're playing. Yeah. And you just stood there like, wow, who decided to put them on at Reading? So that was like, I think they had to stop the gig early that I went to because someone was having a seizure in the crowd. So they had to stop it with about 2 songs left, maybe. It was brutal that the crowd didn't slow down at any point. I had to sort of make my way to the side because I was thinking like, at that point, I was still trying to be. It was 2017. I was 25. I was still trying to be like, I'm a mosh pit guy and all that sort of stuff.
Dancing right up by the podium with anything. It's too loud.
So at that point, I was still sort of tricking myself into thinking, I'm a mosh pit guy. I'm going to go. I'm going to show them how to in the mosh pit. That was the gig that made me think I'm too old for this.
I'm going to back away from that.
I'm actually going to take a step back. So that was the wildest, most brutal gig I've been to in terms of crowd involvement.
Loudest now. Oh man, to be honest, can't really think of anything. I think the closer I've been to the stage at a gig, the louder the experience has been for me. I think I remember Korn being very loud. Obviously, like heavy music, very loud. I was right up front by the barrier. There has been a few like gigs where the next day, you have got that tinnitus in your ears.
Yeah.
I think very loud gigs I've been to are probably more local ones. Gigs I've played at. For obvious reasons, they can be a bit more like relaxed on the old rules there. But craziest, I remember. There's some way I can't remember what band it was, but I've been in some pretty like wacky crowds where it's all just fucking kicking off. That everyone's fucking crowd surfing. I remember like you're just there trying to watch a band, you just feel it's like pressure on your back. You're like, oh god, someone's like climbing over you, like foot's in your face. I remember at one point start getting like dead angry and start like giving them little jabs as he went back. Like fuck off, go away.
Give him a dead leg.
Because it was one of them was the same guy going back and forth. I was like, you're fucking pissing me off now. I remember at Maiden 2011 actually. During the support act, do you remember that big, massive fucking like rugby player dude?
Oh yeah,
and he was just like causing an absolute he was going back and forth and ramming everyone, and I was like, oh my god, this is the support act. Like
I forgot about that.
Like I think with that gig, I think as soon as the main band came on, like the band just turned to an ocean, didn't it? It was just like
Yeah.
And like I think we ended up on the other side of the stage from like where we stood at.
Was that at the Final Frontier?
It was,
2011 one.
yeah.
So it was Airborne that supported, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
and I remember that guy, he was trying to force it, wasn't he?
Yeah, and it was like you look around at the crowd, and it was such like a mixed crowd. Like you had your older folk, you had them like bringing the kids and stuff like that. So that really annoyed me because I was really like, you're being a knobhead.
Yeah.
Like there's a time and a place for that kind of behaviour, and I don't really think an Iron Maiden gig is suitable for that.
Well, they don't Bruce has said loads of times he stopped the shows, hasn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't like dickhead behaviour and stuff.
Well, he doesn't like the whole aspect of like the circle pit and everything like that.
Yeah.
So he has actually stopped gigs, hasn't he, for crowd being too live.
Yeah, I like to have a jump and a bit of a muck about and stuff, but I've never understood like the whole concept of like mosh pits or circle pits and the likes of that. Like I've never really fully got it, to be honest. It's never really been for me. But I remember one gig where I was just stood there going like, this is just fucking absolute, like, fucking, I can't believe this is happening. It was Red Hot Chili Peppers again in Nebworth 2011. Yeah. This was the maddest time that I've seen that band, because usually it's pretty tame, but there was piss everywhere. There was bottles of piss just from the moment like the first support band came on. Throughout the entire gig, it was like I remember having a picture. It was on my Facebook, but it'll be like really low grade quality because it's like 2011 like phone, and like you looked up and the sky was just bottles. It was like a scene out of like you ever seen 300 where the arrows come over and it blacks out the sky. It was like that with bottles and they all had piss in them.
So they were
beer in them.
So the Nebworth crowd was throwing bottles of piss at the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Not at the Chili Peppers, just in the crowd, just back and forth, like a full on like war between the front and further back.
I've never seen anything like that at a gig.
I was drenched in piss, and you'd be stood there and you feel like you feel like that on your shoulder, and you just feel a warm.
Oh my God.
And you just like there to yourself going, that's beer. I'm sure that's beer. And then like, but deep down, like that's piss.
Oh my
like
God.
That was wild. And I remember one other incident that happened at that gig that like really like pissed. The thing is, and we'll get into our gripes, is I don't think I've ever been to a gig and had perfect night where there hasn't been at least one issue with the crowd that's annoyed me,
right?
Even slightly. Like I think there's always been a case where there's someone in the crowd that they're a dickhead, they're winding me up. Like you need to shut up. I remember like just enjoying it, like dancing, like having fun, getting along. The next thing, this guy fucking does the wet willy thing, with the finger in the ear. Right down me fucking lobe, and I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? And I fucking push him away, and I'm like, no, that's fucking bang on. And then all his mates start going, hey, don't you be causing fights and all that. I was like, right, you lot, just fucking stay away from me. You go over there.
Willy, yeah.
Honest, I was so angry, like stuff like that. Like I'm a very like neurodivergent like person.
That's really funny.
That angered me. Like that was kind of like it almost like dampened the whole gig for me because it was someone I couldn't get out the back of me fucking mind. I was like, but that was just such like an unruly, like crazy crowd. Like you'd expect that from, as you say, some of the death metal, heavy metal, bands you go and see.
I'll tell you what, I'd expect
the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I was not expecting it. It was fucking bizarre. This was the Josh Klinghoffer era as well.
I'd expect that sort of behaviour from like you think of bands that are followed by like football fans, crowds like
Arctic Monkeys,
like the Cortinas,
Liam Gallagher,
Liam Gallagher, the Cortinas. I'd expect that
because he'd support it there. He'd be on the stage going, "Come on, let's have it, lads, throw the piss."
Yeah, it's people a crowd of people that aren't music fans, they're just fans of like jumping up and down and like football chants. I'd expect it from that, but like I wouldn't have put the Chili Peppers in that bracket at all.
No, it was just like that's it. It was just bizarre. It was just like what is going on? Like it was. I would say I'm down to say that was the craziest gig. Dizzy Rascal, bottles of piss, wet willies, just fucking mayhem all around. Absolutely. Fucking crazy. We've both been to a lot of gigs. We've both seen some of our favourite bands. I believe we've even been to festivals and seen multiple lineups. But like your dream gig scenario, what would that be?
If I had to pick one, if I could just pick one artist that I need to see, it would be Radiohead. I don't know whether they're ever going to tour again, whether they're ever going to play another gig ever
They're
again.
under like the Smile now or something, aren't they? Tom
Yeah,
York and
yeah. I think it's Johnny Greenwood and Tom York are in the Smile releasing music, touring under that band name. So I don't know whether Radiohead will get back together. I don't know.
yeah.
Play more gigs. But if I could only see one more band, if I could pick a band that I haven't yet seen, only one band that I could pick, it would be them definitely. Because like I said, they're one of my favourite bands of all time, and I think I'd appreciate them now as sort of someone that likes to go to gigs and not to get too involved, just to stand there and just absorb
Yeah.
the stage show and the music and stuff like that. I'd have to go with Radiohead. I would, and I'd pay a lot of money to see them, and we'll get into ticket prices in a minute.
Mm.
But I would pay. They're a band that I'd pay a premium to go and see.
Yeah.
What about you?
See, it's a difficult one for me because as time's gone on in my life, the list of like my bucket list of bands has gone down. I've been very like kind of privileged to see a lot of my favourite bands, like
Yeah,
some of my all time favourites. And even if I haven't seen the band, I've at least seen the artist solo. Like obviously I haven't seen the Smiths. I've
yeah,
seen Morrissey
yeah.
multiple times. So it is like a bit difficult when I'm trying to wrap my head. And I never really like doing the whole time travel thing of I want to go see Nirvana in '93 because
Yeah,
it's just
no,
so
it's
unbelievable.
it's
Isn't it?
unrealistic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unrealistic. So I try and think of. There are some bands that like I kind of look back on and like, damn, I wish I got to see them
Yeah,
either in the prime or before. Like like Linkin Park, for example. I would have loved to have seen them.
yeah,
Back when they were still going as before Chester obviously passed away.
yeah.
I feel like I've got most bases covered. Even the bands there's still bands today where it's like, oh, wouldn't man go and see them? Wouldn't man go and see them? But I kind of know it's more of a if than
Yeah,
when.
yeah,
It's kind of like next time they tour, I'll probably go see them.
yeah,
But to entertain this question, I'd probably say again a band that's been departed for a long time now, but it's still somewhat in the realm of possibility that they could reform, even though one member is gone now. It'd be the Smiths.
yeah,
Obviously, I've seen Morrissey a few times. He does a few Smith songs, but he only does a few. I'd
yeah.
love to see a full set of Smith songs.
Oh, yeah,
I'm not the biggest fan of kind of like Johnny Marr's singing voice. I know he does
yeah.
play a lot more Smiths
I've seen
in
Johnny
his
Marr.
sets.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen him at. I saw him at the British Summertime Festival when I went
yeah.
last year,
I
and
know he is a bit more complimentary to the
yeah,
Smith fans, isn't
he
he?
played a lot of Smith's stuff, and he did sound very good. I must say, he did sound very good. But yeah, it's not the same as
Yeah,
having Morrissey. Morrissey's voice is iconic, isn't it?
it
Let's
is.
be
Yeah,
honest.
it is. And just to kind of see them reconcile, like it was like before Guns N' Roses reformed, like with Slash and Duff. Like I never thought that would happen.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like if they can put things behind them,
mm,
because they were getting to the point where Axl Rose was banning Slash t-shirts and Slash merch at
right.
his gigs. So for them to reconcile the differences and play again,
Yeah,
I think it could be somewhat possible.
yeah.
Maybe when things become a little bit calmer on the whole political landscape,
That's
because
it. Yeah, yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest thing that gets in the way at the moment. Because Morrissey's kind of gone off the deep end a little bit with some of his
Yeah, you're right.
some of his views and points, and I know Johnny Marr's quite left. So
Yeah, Johnny Marr right now. It's not really a good look for Johnny Marr from a career perspective
yeah,
to be involved with Morrissey, is it?
no.
So I can't see it happening anytime soon. But like you said, you just never know in the future, do you? Like,
Oh, so yeah, I'd probably say some kind of form of the Smiths. Tell you what, though, funnily enough, did you watch on Glastonbury? Was it last year? The Blossoms and Rick Astley
oh, it's
do this.
fantastic.
It's fantastic, wasn't it?
How good
If
is
they
that?
did a full tour, I would hands down go and see them,
Oh, I would, man.
and that'd probably scratch that itch for me. I'd probably be
Yeah.
satisfied to be like, you know what, yeah, I've seen a version of the Smiths. That'll do me.
My mate went to Glastonbury last year, and that was a secret set that wasn't announced
Yeah, yeah.
before the festival. So when they found out on the day that they were going to play, and Blossoms doing Smith's covers up with Rick Astley on the vocals,
That's wild.
they were at another stage altogether. They were about an hour away
Yeah.
from the stage the tent that they
Yeah.
played in, and they said there was a swarm of
Yeah,
people like power walking across the campsite
Yeah.
to get to that, and it was packed, and it looked absolutely amazing from what I saw on the telly.
So, time for a bit of a moan and a bit of a whinge. Changes to gigs. What things about gigs annoy you a bit, and what would you like to change?
Well, I'm going to get the obvious and easy one out of the way. Ticket prices are a joke.
Uh-huh.
They're going out of control now. I believe that people were. My missus was looking for Taylor Swift tickets that were on sale, and she got offered one by one of our other good friends, and she was like, "Oh, okay, I'm interested. How much?" £250, and that was the original.
It's cheap. That's low end, isn't it, compared to
Well,
the prices some people paid?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Obviously, this £250 though was the original retail price that the ticket was bought for.
There is no need for that. No need whatsoever.
It's absolutely scandalous. It's
It is.
unacceptable.
It is. It's not on. And I tell you what, when The Cure last did the tour in 2022, Robert Smith constantly battled with Ticketmaster. He is one of the only artists I know who's really made a stand against all this. He was really against the scalpers. He was really against the resales.
Yeah.
And he was adamant that the tickets would be at a reasonable price. And they were. I'm sure they were about 40 odd quid.
Yeah, it's reasonable, yeah.
And like he was he was on Twitter, like he was making sure people got refunds. He was on it. He was on the warpath, and through doing that, he exposed quite a lot.
Yeah.
So you know how you go for tickets, and then there's like, oh, there's the VIP package or the golden package and all that. That's the bands. The bands have a choice to put them in. When I saw My Chemical Romance, we got the VIP tickets. I can tell you now, we had a worse experience than the standard ticket holders because although we got in the quote unquote golden circle, which is closer to the stage, we didn't have access to the merch stalls. We didn't have access to the food stalls. We couldn't leave that bit throughout the whole of the gig.
Wow.
We couldn't leave it. Once we were in the thing, where standard tickets or seating could go out, check out all the things at the food court, all the different, types of food and stuff.
That's far worse, isn't it?
A lot better merchandise. All we got to go in the Golden Circle, and we got a little goodie bag that was full of tat. You know what I mean? We've got My Chemical Romance scarf, My Chemical Romance poncho.
You think
a few badges and a few stickers.
You think? I always think the incentive for like VIP tickets and backstage tickets and all that sort of stuff is
to go backstage.
It's to meet the band.
Yeah,
you don't have any pictures taken with them or anything.
No, not these days. Not these days. It's literally just like premium. You know what I mean? You get to go in. They call it the Golden Circle, don't they? Where they basically fence off the front bit of the stage, and you get to go in that bit. I think that's really scummy because I saw the Chili Peppers as well, and I think the tickets for that were pretty high. Yeah. I think I had to pay about 90 odd quid for that.
I paid £90 for two. Yeah.
Stupid fucking prices.
So
the Golden Circle. I was right by the barrier, right before the Golden Circle. Golden Circle was like half empty. And it was like, will they let us in? Will they fuck? You know what I mean? Nope. You're not getting in.
Stay in your area.
Yeah. Stay in your zone.
Stay in your pen.
Stay in your pen. Stay in your fucking pig pen.
Like, I was speaking to a lad in work last week, and his wife had been offered a ticket to see Pink. Pink, not my cup of tea or anything. How much? £170 for Pink. She's like 20 years past the sell-by date. And I was like...
She just goes around on the fucking bungee cord and she fucking around the stage.
I was like, this has gone too far now. Like this.
It is so ridiculous. The problem is this won't be corrected unless people make a stand for it. Yeah. That's kind of what annoys me, is like, if you will pay them prices, they will charge them prices.
Oh, absolutely.
There's been plenty of bands in the past couple of years that I would have loved to have gone to see. Love to have gone to see Blink-182 on the recent tour. Yeah. I wanted to see Paramore as well. I would have seen Iron Maiden on their more recent tour. I looked at the tickets and they were like anywhere from about 90 quid onwards, over £100. I was like, no, I'm not paying that. That is just stupid. Especially like in the current climate. Yeah. It is ridiculous. It bothers me so much.
I was looking at going to see Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds in Manchester on their upcoming tour. And I was like, oh yeah, Nick Cave, I like Nick Cave's stuff. I like the Bad Seeds playing the arena. Yeah, I'd go that 50 quid, 60 quid maybe. £90, £90 the tickets. I went, no, I'm sorry. Oh. And Nick Cave's great, but that's a joke. That it's not even an elite. It's at the arena, but it's not an elite. It's not an elite tier like superstar. £90 for me is to see like
Taylor Swift.
Well, yeah, probably, yeah. Or like even like an Iron Maiden in this day and age, or a legendary sort of like massive band. Nick Cave, £90 couldn't justify it, so I just left it. I think there should be. I don't know what the solution is, but a cap based on venue size, maybe. Arenas capped at £100, 3,000 capacity little all standing venues, maybe cap them at £30. I don't know, but like you said, people continue to pay premium prices. There's no reason for them to cap it, is there?
It's pay with your wallet. It's purely pay with your vote with your wallet. That's the phrase. Vote with your wallet. If you pay, they'll continue to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
If you start doing these gigs and they're not selling and you're playing to half empty arenas, you're fucking up. You've got to drop the price.
Yeah.
I saw them. It kind of made me laugh the other week. Looking 30 Seconds to Mars.
Oh, yeah.
Who were literally not even 30 Seconds to Mars anymore. They're like pretty much just Jared Leto and his brother.
Yeah.
And they did a UK tour, and I was seeing TikToks, and they were playing arenas, but they had the curtains of shame up on the upper tier, and the venues are pretty much like half empty.
Right.
And it was like, I wonder how much you were selling them tickets for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he said, I saw TikTok, he said, Jared Leto, the Joker, he said, Morbius, Morbin time. He said to everyone who was at that gig, they could go the next gig for free. That's how desperate they were to fill out.
Oh, my word.
It was like, but yeah, going back to it again, the prices, they're just ridiculous. Something needs to be done. And again, like it's hard to say because it's like, some of these bands have been in your life for so long and have such a connection to them. I don't want to turn around to you and say, don't go and see them because they're too expensive. If you got the money,
absolutely,
you do what you want with your own money.
Everyone's free to do what they want.
If you're not happy with this, it takes a number of us to make a stand. You know what I mean? It takes a number of us to make a difference.
Definitely, I agree.
So I think that's the biggest thing in terms of changes. But I think this next one that I'm going to come up with is more of a debatey kind of subject because I've got mixed feelings on it. What is your thoughts on mobile phones in gigs?
Personally, unless I'm, like I said, I've got a few gig reviews up on my TikTok page. Unless I'm doing something like that where I want to make them into a full video, upload them to the internet, and then delete them off my phone afterwards. Unless I'm doing that, I never have my phone out at a gig. And when I get it out to film segments for my videos or whatever, I'll literally do 30 seconds and then I'll take it off.
30 seconds to Mars.
Yeah. Literally, I'll time it to 30 seconds and then I'll switch the video off. But I've seen people stood there with their phones out filming entire songs, and I'm like, why? At what point are you ever going to sit there and watch that 4-minute video?
I've got mixed... I do have mixed feelings on this. I really do. I feel... Going back to what we said about the prices, I feel like if you're paying that price, you're entitled to do what the fuck you want at that gig.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So if you want to film the entire experience so you can rewatch it, even though you probably won't, then that is entirely up to you, I believe. You've paid out the arse for that. And it's, as I say, it's not just the tickets. You've got to pay for the travel. You buy merch.
Yeah.
The whole gig experience is an expensive thing. It's something that not many people can just do off a whim. If you want to film that, that is fine.
Yeah.
However, I've seen two extremes of it now. So when I went to see Placebo last year, or the year before, or last time I saw Placebo, they had a no phones policy. First gig I've ever been to have that. Okay. They didn't take the phones off you like I believe they've done in some gigs with some bands. But they basically, what they had was a line of security at the front. And anytime someone got a phone out, they'd get these torches, like these laser things, and they point it in the person's eyes. Oh. And it was so... I didn't get my phone out during the whole thing, because I was like, all right, I'll respect it. I'm right at the front. You'll see me with a fucking phone out, so I won't do it. The gig was ruined, like partly ruined for me, because every 5 minutes, some big security guy was literally getting right in my field of view, right in my vision, to go shine a torch in someone's eyes.
Oh, no,
and I was like, this has put me off the gig more than seeing someone's phone up in the air. It's putting me off.
That is a bit extreme. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, like that was one extreme, and I thought, no, you can't, it shouldn't be something you can, police like that. That's not really entirely fair.
No.
I understand that the artists have their kind of feelings towards it, and it is their gig, but again, at the end of the day, you're the one paying their wages. I've said this before. It comes to set lists and people argue back. You go, oh, well, the band can do whatever they want to do. It's like, true, but if they're going to play bad set lists, I'm not going to keep seeing them.
Yeah.
You've lost a customer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you see that happens to bands, the venues they play, they get smaller and smaller. Yeah. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is this Taylor Swift tour. which I've seen a lot of footage of on TikTok.
Yeah.
And the bit where the line's drawn for me now is people aren't filming the gig anymore. They're filming themselves. They're making TikToks while watching the show.
Yeah.
I've seen this meme. I like it. It's a bit of fun and it's a bit cute, but personally, it kind of grinds my gears a little bit. Where I don't know if you've seen it, but it'll be like someone filming someone, and it's like, oh, I hope she plays Love Story, and then the other person will go, this is the Foo Fighters, actually.
Yeah, I've seen
Like, that meme winds me up so much every time I see it, usually because, like, the acting's really bad. Like, one person's a lot more enthusiastic than the other.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such, like, a stupid meme. It's like, shut up, I've had enough. But on TikTok, I keep seeing, because TikTok has this horrible thing of, like, if you hate something or you don't enjoy it and you still end up watching it, keeps showing you it. And I keep seeing, like, these girls film themselves fucking screaming the fucking lyrics. Where you said by someone who wanted be dead. Fucking top of the lungs, like, fucking screaming it.
Yeah.
And I've seen people filming people doing that, going, oh my God, I'm trying to watch this gig I've paid 300 quid for, and this fucking woman is howling like a banshee. Like, fucking like that.
Like, this trend of filming yourself at an event, it isn't even just limited to gigs. It's a football thing. People have got YouTube channels where they literally just film themselves watching the match, giving a running commentary on what's going on the pitch, and you can see everyone behind them in the crowd just sat there, and you can just see people looking over like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, just put that away. You look like an absolute clown.
Yeah. But I've seen all sorts. There's like proposals are a big thing at the fucking Eras gigs as well, and like it's all the showmanship, and it's like gigs aren't even about the artist anymore. You still got to find a way to make it about you. You've got to this has got to be about me. This is my main character syndrome. This is my experience at the Taylor Swift gig. It's like fucking God's sake, like fucking hell.
I agree.
So it's getting to a point now where it's like, if I start going gigs and I start seeing people doing that, clowning around, I'm going to get annoyed. And it's going to creep in. To the point now where people have turned the cameras on themselves now and don't even film the band. Like, know something's like going a bit wrong in the system, don't you?
Definitely.
I think they're like the major changes for me. Is there anything you'd want to say?
Really think of anything else. Like, nitpicky wise, there's obviously personal preference things that come into it, regarding set lists.
Yeah, set lists is big. We can talk a little bit about set lists. As I say, there's like three types of set list, isn't it? There's the set list that's established from start to end of the tour. There's the kind of revolving set list where it's like it could be a choice of either three sets that you're going to get on that given night. And then there's just the out there. It could be anything set list. And I think all of them have benefits and downsides to them. I think
I went to see Tool last month. They played. I'd looked at the set list for the whole tour beforehand, and I'd just seen that it was the same set list every night. I was looking at it like, I wouldn't mind a little bit of variety. Like, they're playing songs off an album. They're basically doing a tour for an album that was released 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's weird.
And it's like, right, okay, I get that you had 2 years of, COVID years where you weren't allowed to tour. But even if you take them 2 years out, you've got 3 years of touring years for that album out the way already now. Why is the set list still so stacked with songs from this album? People now, 5 years on, want to see they want to see old songs on the set list. They don't need to see.
Did the album do well?
It did well in terms of streams and stuff because it was the first Tool album for 30
years. Like critically, what was the consensus?
It's universally
mixed reviews.
Mixed. It's universally considered Tool's worst album.
Yeah,
by critics and fans.
There's got to be a level of self-awareness, hasn't there? There's got to be a level of self-awareness. Sometimes I think bands get the hump. I think with artists, it's all about ego, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes they get the fucking hump.
Well, we mentioned about
if an album flops.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes they push it more.
Force it, yeah. Like we were talking about the Chili's before, having a bit of a resentment towards their audience. I think Tool have exactly the same thing, and I think Maynard is a major culprit of that. I feel like he can't accept that last album just wasn't very good. And he's now like, well, we're just going to force it on you every single time we tour and everything. It's like, what are you getting out of that? Like, you're just spiting your own fans. Maybe that's not what they're doing, but it feels a bit like that they are doing because it's just so. It's 5 years old.
Yeah, I
It's not
think.
a new album. Most bands have released 2 albums since that album came out.
Oh, don't talk to me
Do you know what I
about
mean?
that. I'm waiting. I've been waiting 16 odd years for any Cure album
But if
now.
we talk about the standard cycle, 2 years release, 2 years
Yeah.
release, maybe 3 years release. Most bands have released at least one album since that last two album came out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like a new album. The fans aren't excited to go to gigs to see these songs. I don't know what you are getting out of it other than a sort of like perverse sort of mocking your fans in a way.
One thing that bugs me about that and about set lists and kind of what you said is sometimes I feel like you are tricked into buying the tickets to see a band because they put the tour up and you instantly get that FOMO and you instantly like, shit, I need to get these tickets. I need to see this band.
Yeah.
And then, the tour doesn't start for like, sometimes it could be a year, you know what I mean? Like you have these long periods of time where you're holding on to these tickets. And then, the tour starts, maybe in the UK, maybe somewhere else in the world. You start looking at the set list and you start going a bit like, oh, no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly
I feel like a good way to kind of conclude this issue and a good fix would be bands should announce their set lists with the tour. If they want to keep things like a surprise, they can be like, right, there's going to be surprise songs, but listen, we're playing songs off this album, and we're going to play songs off this album
before the tickets go on sale.
Before the tickets go on sale, because people all rush and panic, and then they go to the tour, and like the amount of times I've been to gigs and people don't even know the new songs, and they're like, oh, I don't really. It was all right, but I didn't like. Prime example: Iron Maiden in 2006. They played the entirety of A Matter of Life and Death.
That's overkill. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was. I liked that album a lot. I really enjoyed it because I was just such a mega fan at the time.
Yeah.
But looking back, I'm like, that was not a smart move.
Because it's not a short album, is it?
No. It was that, and then I think it was literally about 4 or 5 songs afterwards.
Yeah, that's too much.
It really wasn't like that. That was the majority of the set list. And I went with my dad, all his mates and all that. They hadn't even, most of them hadn't even bought the album, hadn't listened to the album. So obviously, of course, they're going to be stood there for most of it, kind of scratching their head, like, I get why, like, as an artist, you want to mix it up. Most of the time, so many songs never get play. They never get live play, do they?
No.
So it's good to get, like, if you really have faith in that album, but, like, again, the audience, they pay your wage. I'm sorry, I know that's a hot take in music. I know it's a hot take in art. People get funny about that, but you do. People say the band don't owe the fans. I disagree to an extent.
I don't understand how you can debate that.
This is such a minimum, like, absolutely, like, hard to compare. But my band, for example, we did a song. That I wrote a song and I hated that song. I thought it was crap, but we needed to fill in the set list. We needed to, get more songs out there, and we had a gig coming up. So I wrote this song, literally 10 minutes, low effort, put it out there in the world. And I was like, right, we'll play this song, and then after that, we'll throw it in the bin. Played the song the night of the gig, and when people came up to me after the gig, everyone there that spoke to me went on about how much they loved that song.
Yeah.
I didn't like that song, but I chose to keep that in the set list because it's like, well, I need people to enjoy me. I need people to enjoy my music. So I kept it in the set list, and then I even recorded it and had it as a single because I knew it was like a favourite. And it's like there never was I never had a gig where someone didn't come up and praise that song.
Yeah.
It was just like
that's it, isn't it? Like you are supposed to.
It's such a night and day comparison because you talk about bands of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands compared to me. You fill out rooms of about 30 odd people, but it's still
the concept's the same.
Yeah, the concept's the same, isn't it?
You are rewarding your audience for being loyal to you. And there should be an element of that, definitely, because your fans have been loyal enough to pay money, like you said, out of their own back pocket to see you. They are paying you, like you said. That money is finding its way eventually to you. So you do have a bit of an obligation to satisfy your customer base.
Yeah,
you do though.
Yeah, it's true. As I say, the problem is you're mixing art with media. aren't you? And it's always going to clash. The artist should be able to curate part of the curation of the set list and create the set list is part of their art. So there always are going to be head clashes with that. But all I'm going to say is if Tool put out that set list when they announced that tour, would they have sold as many tickets?
Would I have gone?
Exactly.
Don't know.
So there is a bit of sneakiness a bit behind it. I think there is a bit of like trickery behind it.
Yeah.
But we'll move on from that and we'll finish the episode on two little funny tales I've got from my own gigs. I thought it'd just be a bit fun and a bit cute to share on the podcast. So going back to worst gigs, I've talked about someone's Saturn Split's worst gigs on the Saturn Split episode, but this is the band I was in before Saturn Split, Safari Inc. I really want to do an episode on Safari Inc. because there really is just a crazy story behind it all. But we were getting to the point where we were gigging regularly and we were starting to make a bit of a name for ourselves, and we were starting to get out there to the point where people come to us for gigs rather than us trying to get gigs. One gig in particular I was really looking forward to doing was like an all-day festival in a town called West Kirby Fest.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to this because it was on the Whittle where I live. So it was like playing locally because usually I have to go out to Liverpool or other cities to play. And I knew there were loads of bands playing. It was an all-day thing, and I thought this is sure to bring in a crowd. This is sure to be like a really big, memorable gig, outdoor gig. To me, it felt like the next step up in my kind of like career as a musician. I was really looking forward to it. The singer kind of like, he was the one who'd organised, got the gig for us, and was doing the back and forth between the promoters. So my assumption was, okay, we'll get there. There'll be probably like a big open area, big grass area, field or something, big stage. We'll be getting on that stage, playing a set. Fucking brilliant, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So closer to the date, and I didn't have a car at the time, so I had to get the train, like half an hour train up there. And we're all in the group chat, and we're like, where's it we're getting to? Where do we have to get to? I thought I'd be literally off the station over to this big green grass, big open field, nice and lovely. No, he's like, oh, we're playing at like the Dog and Hound. I can't even remember what it's called. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're playing at the Fox Hunt pub, and I'm like, we're playing in a pub. Like what? Like this is West Kirby Fest, but it was like bands. It was like Edinburgh Fringe, but like much smaller. You know what I mean? It was like gigs everywhere in every venue throughout the whole day and night. So I'm like, okay, all right. I'm sure it has like a beer garden-y bit or something that we'll be playing. Like this, I'm still excited for this. Get it up on the map, and I'm like, bloody hell, this is like a 40-minute bus ride away from the town where the festival was going on. So this was completely on like the outskirts. This was like miles away from all the action where everyone was. So I was like, right, come on, let's like, I was still like being optimistic. I remember the night before I actually had watched Red Hot Chili Peppers live at Slane Castle to hype myself up. Like watching I was like, like this is how a real band does it. I'm really going to put performance into this. And they're like carrying me bass around, get on the bus, absolute miles out, middle of nowhere, the Dog and Hound, whatever the fuck it was called.
Yeah.
Get in. Fucking dead as a doornail. It's basically like a fucking Toby Carvery type place. You know where pubs have like that elevated bit?
Yeah.
Where I think back in the day it used to be like the smokers bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
That's where the stage was, pretty much just 2 amps. Basic standard covers band setup. You know when you have a covers band playing at a pub or something.
Yeah.
Bouncy castle outside, face paint. Old Greg sat there having his roast dinner. Full of just not gig goers, you know what I mean? Just your bog standard Sunday afternoon, families, older gentlemen, all sat around. And that was just when I put me head, me hands. I was like, this is one of the biggest disappointments in my life, this. But was like, all right, we can still put on a show. And it was just hands down the worst gig that band had played. There was a lot of things wrong with that band.
Yeah.
A lot of things wrong with the singer in particular.
Mm.
Well, he's in prison now, so yeah.
Oh my word!
And it was so cringe. We messed up a song, tried the song again, and messed it up again. So there was 2 failed attempts at a song. That is one of my biggest no-nos. Even if you mess up a song, you plow through that song, you carry on that song, and you just hope to God the audience did not spot what went wrong.
Wow.
and he's like, sorry, can we do it again? And you're like, oh my God. The drummer was like, again, I had issues with the drummer. We'll do a big episode about this. This really was just a big story to tell.
Yeah.
But the drummer was like screaming like a 5-year-old child behind his drum kit, going, I'm too hot.
Oh my God.
Like getting angry about it. And it's like, yeah, it's a gig, mate. You get hot at gigs.
Exactly.
Like, what on earth?
You are a drummer, so you are the most active.
Yeah,
in the
and
band.
he was getting angry. He was getting like angry and irate. I was like, don't get angry. Like, just chill out, will you?
Brilliant.
Terrible gig. Came off the stage, absolutely like just in tatters, just devastated. We went out into the car park to like start putting the gear in the back of the car, and I just turned around and went, lads, what was that? That was terrible. And then like the singer and the drummer, I thought it went all right. That. I was like, no.
Delusion.
No, that did not go all right. That was that was a car crash, you know what I mean? It was the worst gig I'd ever played.
Oh.
That was such like, you know what I mean? Like the expectation versus reality.
Down to earth.
It was such a down to earth, like humbling moment.
Yeah.
And this next story is quite humbling moment. So this was with Saturn Split, and this is a gig we played at Jimmy's in Liverpool, and it was a great gig. It was the last gig with one of the drummers we had at the time, so we kind of made it like a big special event for them. And we played our hearts out. It was the first gig I played after COVID. So it had a lot to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The gig itself was fucking brilliant. Like, I thought we played great, and it was a great gig. I came off the stage feeling a lot more like confident than I usually do coming off the stage, because usually that's a horrible experience. The moment you come off a stage and you're like back on the ground with everyone else, it feels horrible, and you just all the mistakes and everything that went wrong is like circling through your head. Like, and then people come up to you, go, "Oh, it was a good gig, mate." And you calm down a bit then, and then later on you're like, "Yeah, that was a really good gig."
Yeah.
This one in particular, I come away from, I was like, "That was great. We fucking smashed it." You know what I mean? Go up to the bar to get a drink. There's a girl there. She's like, do you want a drink? I'm like, bloody hell. I'm not usually, like, I was single at the time, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'm not usually that, you know, I'm not really the type that, I don't really get, you know, offered drinks very much, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So it was a big of a deal for me. I was like, oh, I've just played this gig. Girls are buying me drinks. This is going great. She buys me a drink, and I'm like chatting to her and stuff. Another girl comes, offers to buy me a drink. I'm like, bloody hell, I'm like a pig amongst guinea pigs today. Life's going well for me. But I liked the other girl that I was talking to more. Yeah. So I carried on talking to her throughout the night, and she was with the band that was playing after us, and she was like the photographer. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, she was just band photographer, whatever. She seemed to like be focusing on the drummer, who was like an older woman, who was like a bit too old to be playing with the band that she was with. I thought it might have been one of their mums or something, to be honest. And she was really like focusing on her, like taking pictures of her and stuff. And I was like, is that her mum?
Oh, yeah.
So I'd had a few drinks. I was feeling like, you know, I had a bit of Dutch courage in me. Don't really do this kind of thing. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to ask this girl for her number.
Yeah.
Why not, eh? You know, you only live once. So, end of the gig, you know, everyone's setting stuff away. I go up to her and go like, oh, you know, could I have your number? Like, she turned around and goes, I'm engaged to her. And points at the drummer.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, all right, okay, sorry. And just like walked away. And I was like, shit, we still have to like talk to this band and like do a bit of like sort things out, because there was like ticket sales and stuff, and like, you know, social stuff. And I was like, oh please don't tell her. Please don't fucking tell her. At the same time, I was just there like, you know what? This is just my luck in life. This is just typical John Wright fucking.
What was your reaction to that? I would have just burst out laughing, to be honest.
I just very sheepishly just kind of went, oh, okay, all right, and just kind of walked away, and then just kind of like huddled over to Jamie and Lisa and some other people, and was like,
go look at a ball and just
like, I was like, yeah, we need to pack up and go now. So that's a funny, cute little humiliating story to end this podcast off.
What a way to end it.
What a way to end it. That's just my life.
Yeah.
So it's been great having you on, Mike. Nice, good little episode there.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Nice little break of, you know, break a pace, change, whatever.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like you said, it's something I'll never get tired of talking about. It's what I do now. I go to gigs, talk about them.
I'm desperate to go another gig again. I'm like, really trying to look for gigs. I was like looking the other day. I was like, oh, Kate Nash is playing one of the venues I've played before. So I was like, oh, okay. Download, put the tickets up already.
Oh, it was a washout, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it was an absolute washout. Did you see some of the footage from it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. It didn't really look like a lineup that I was like overly.
Oh no, the lineup was shocking for me.
Yeah. But they put the tickets up for next year, and it's like £300 for 5 days camping, which is talking about gig tickets. That's relatively bloody cheap.
Festivals are where the value is, by the way.
Yeah,
they always have been, and they still are now.
I am tempted.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say. I am tempted. But what were your favourite gigs? Write into the show and let me know what were your worst. Got any other stories? Anything else that you'd want us to talk about on the podcast? Let me know. Make sure to follow on Spotify. If you could give us a 5-star review on Spotify, that would be top dollar. Need some of that. That really helps with the algorithm. We've got a YouTube, John's Jam Sessions, clips, podcast episodes, exclusive videos. Check that out. Make sure you follow us on our socials. And I will see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye.